The story opens with an emblem representing the royal class, and the sun shines brightly on the building where this emblem is adorned. Inside the temple, there is a special class with a curriculum designed to cultivate talents in various fields for the benefit of the empire, and only geniuses are permitted to enter. A group of students, 2 girls and 2 boys, are looking at the reader. These students have extraordinary abilities and talents. They have boundless opportunities. A blond man sits on the fountain with his arms crossed, and a pink-haired student admires him. Such students form part of an elite society, and this is what the royal class represents. A silver-haired man with glasses is reading a list and comments that the 11th entry in Class A is wrong. Someone asks why. The blond boy stands up, fixing his hair, while others whisper, wondering if this is the one with unlimited potential and if he managed to enter the royal class solely because of his abilities. They add that this is the first time they have seen something like this. Meanwhile, our boy, being confused, stands up after hearing congratulations for entering the royal class, mentally questioning why he managed to get into this hell. In the library, our boy reflects that he had already been looked down upon since he was reborn as a 17-year-old son of the demon king, who is doomed for his past sin. Being over 30 in spirit, he is put in a position where he has to fight for survival while attending the academy. The burning of the academy building reveals to the hero that this world is destined for ruination. A brown-haired boy and a black-haired boy with an expression of discontent stand, looking at the reader. In the background are a girl and a boy scratching his head. Our boy understands that he has to survive among people who will do everything in their power to destroy him. Our boy thinks he has no choice but to become stronger to survive. To do this, he must gain achievement points. Changing memories flash through our boy's mind. A red-haired demon sitting on a throne expressionlessly, and a girl in uniform with an expressionless look pointing her sword at the reader. This is the novel our boy has written. System windows appear to proclaim a new event, and another declares that our boy must do all in his power to survive the novel's events. A Gothic cracked castle appears, symbolizing the protracted war between the demon world and human beings, which sealed the fate of both races. A man in shining armor with his sword ready to strike attacks a demon in dark robes. The great clash of the 2 races ended with the death of the demon king, Valier, and with the demon king's death came peace. 3 people sit before priests who are receiving awards, acknowledging the empire's gigantic efforts during the long and arduous war. The academy, familiarly called the temple, was established with the aim of finding talents and heroes. It was intended to be a place where brilliant people from all over the empire would gather. It was said that the royal class was a special caste in such a group of students. It included geniuses among geniuses. In this class, Ludwig was a guy with a hot temper and a high sense of justice, but always in last place. This web novel, published weekly, falls under the fantasy genre. According to the description, it is an action-packed fantasy novel set in the temple. However, among all the hate comments, one comment bluntly states that the novel is boring and childish. Among them is one suggesting that the author should quit writing. Another commenter describes the work as dull and boring, complaining about the stupidity of the girls in love with the main character. One commenter even offers the author basic storytelling advice. Someone starts typing a new comment, but the keyboard seems to be stuck on the last letter, and the message is never sent. Our boy slumped over the keyboard, with his face pressed against it. Our boy dies while reading hate comments on his novel that cause high blood pressure, and his soul looks down at his ghostly body. A pink-haired girl in business attire hands him the description of his death and begins to explain that he was brought down by cardiac arrest due to a sudden peak in blood pressure. The pink-haired girl is the agent of the Soul Management Department Grim Reaper named Kim. Kim handed over the document to our boy to confirm it. Looking around, he asks if he has really died and starts to reflect, realizing that he succumbed to high blood pressure while reading hateful comments. Kim becomes angry and points at our boy and sternly tells him to stop asking questions. Our boy admits that she must be right, and he doesn't want to hear it, but he has to face reality. As he recalls his vision fading before his last breath, he mentally complains about how stupid his death was. The Reaper tells him to stop wasting time and make his decision because she has much work to do. Our boy is still in shock from his unexpected death and grows more frustrated about being forced to make a strange decision so soon. The Reaper has explained that when someone dies, they need to first atone for their major sins in order to go to heaven. Our boy looks at the document with sadness as he reads about his worst sins that are endlessly releasing sequels to his novel and writing stories with terrible scripts. Immersed in his memories, he recalls sitting at his computer as our boy was a writer. He reflects on how irresponsibly he published chapters carelessly, and how, despite that, he had the audacity to write a new novel and release it from another account. Our boy acknowledges that everybody atones in their own different ways. Our boy asks Reaper if this even counts as a sin, while internally, he concedes that there is nothing to be proud of in his writing habits, but still tries to defend himself. Kim calmly explains that, while his sin may seem small when considering its impact on one person, it became significant because it happened repeatedly and affected many people. Our boy wonders, what kind of system is this? In the end, being an irresponsible writer, our boy had to atone for his sins. For the absolution of his sins, he must choose one of his completed novels, be reborn as one of its heroes, and stay alive until the very end. Filled with rage when he first hears what is in store for him, he wants to scream. In response, with a smile on her face, the Reaper asks if her offer is not better than spending eternity in hell. She says further that, since these are his own novels, he should know all that will happen, so, in truth, this would be a bonus and not punishment. Our boy, with a worried expression, responds that it is up to the novel. Our boy realizes that no matter how hard he tries to pick a good novel, all his novels are far from happy endings. A list of completed works appears. Our boy's #1 novel on the list is City of the Dead. It is a story about a zombie apocalypse where he will be eaten in less than a day. Survival in Ruined World is the second work. It is a story of survival in an apocalyptic world. Our boy realizes he has nothing to do with it, as he is already metaphorically dead upon merely reading the comments of haters on the internet. A Hunter Becomes a Manager is the third work, a modern action story about hunters. Our boy thinks that he will be torn apart within the first chapter. Somehow the game became reality, but my occupation is cleaner. The fourth book, which is a fantasy story whose description says 90% of mankind will die out through the invasion process of reality with the game, and our boy realizes that he will be one of them. Ripping his eyes away from the list, he glanced glumly to the side, realizing it didn't matter that these were his novels because he would die anyway. Again, staring at the list, our boy wonders whether he really has no other option. The fifth novel, The Death of the Demon King, is an ordinary fantasy story about learning at the academy. This is the only relatively normal novel among his depressive efforts. Our boy realizes that this is the best option for now, neglecting the fact that this novel is the cause of his death. Our boy thinks that it is just a cute, everyday story after the war, with much lower chances of dying, as the final boss dies at the very beginning of the story, followed by events after that. Our boy understands that it's a better choice. Our boy thinks that since everything will be decided randomly, he shouldn't hope to get the role of the main character. He just needs to become a student. Our boy tries to remember why his novel failed and realizes that something is wrong with the second part. The Reaper turns to him, saying that if he is going to drag things out, she will make the choice for him. She adds that her personal favorite is the City of the Dead. Abruptly turning around, he hands her the form and screams that he chose the death of the Demon King. The Reaper applauds and sends the man best wishes. She claps her hands, and our boy changes into a young man with red hair and horns and stands in the center of a lavishly decorated office. His face is impassive as he tries to comprehend what is happening, as he was just in his room, and now he is in an extravagant place. Our boy touches his horns and clothes with wonder. Our boy looks at the ceiling, realizing that he really got into his novel. He curses Kim for throwing him into this situation without any explanation. Suddenly, his thoughts are interrupted by a system window that appears in front of his face, forcing him to recoil in surprise and to think that it is a cliché development. The status window indicates that his age is 17, his stats range from F to C, his race is an archdemon, and his abilities include the power of a demon. His name is Valor Jr. Our boy, surrounded by questions, wondering what it means to be an archdemon and who's Valor Jr. When our boy realizes what it means, he screams with disagreement. Something suddenly pulls him out of his thoughts. He is startled and peers toward the window where some noise is coming from behind it. A brilliant yellow light falls across his face as he wonders what the noise is. A shell crashes into the castle and tears a tremendous part of it asunder. Screaming in agony, our boy is tossed aside by the walls, shards of glass, stone, and debris falling from the ceiling. Lying on the ground in a concussed state, struggling to his feet, our boy looks up and wonders what kind of explosion just occurred. A system window accompanied by its characteristic chime appears in front of him. He looks at it and sees that the prologue event has started. It says that the demon army is going to be destroyed, and he cannot do anything about it. The task is to get out of the castle of the Demon King. There is a reward of 100 achievement points for it. Something frightens him. He looks up and screams to see the defeated ogre hanging from the ceiling. He notices many monsters who have been defeated fallen in the hallway. Concluding that he actually did get reborn in his novel, The Death of the Demon King, our boy runs down the corridor. He knows being chosen at random has brought him straight into the Demon King's castle as a character that was never in the novel. At just 17 years old, he has no fighting skills and has been reborn where the Demon King dies at the very beginning. Crying and screaming, he curses while a fireball explodes behind him. He now realizes that he is the prince of the destroyed Demon Kingdom. Our boy keeps running, gasping for breath and being tired. The ceiling begins to collapse under the force of the bombardment. Our boy shows his disappointment, saying the Reaper was a scammer. Our boy remembers Kim saying that he should take it as a reward as he already knew the story of the novel. Our boy screams, asking why he became the son of the Demon King. Our boy realizes that the collapse of the temple is because the hero and the Demon King are in the middle of a final battle. These are the prologue scenes from his novel that he wrote himself. In this scene, both of them will meet their end, and the war will end with human victory. In that moment of desperation, our boy understands that, since he has become the Demon King, he will inevitably die once caught. Wiping off the sweat from his face, our boy thinks about how he should survive this situation. Glancing over at the system window floating behind him, he realizes it's following him, although such a system isn't in the original novel. By the cliched status window format, he knows that the system window displays his characteristics. Although he doesn't understand the exact standards, he can say that his characteristics of him are not great. Our boy thinks being the final boss, he could have run away or tried to reach an agreement, and that anything would have been better than this. Staring at the system window, he realizes that he has no special skills that can help him survive or escape. The only remotely useful skill is his ability to read the language of this world. Panting after another desperate sprint, he looks up and sees a sign written in the language of this world. It reads, "Warehouse." Our boy hopes to find something useful there, but only sees trash. Sorting through a chest, he tosses out a red bottle. Realizing this is why the demon army lost to the Imperial army. A book catches his eye, and our boy realizes it's a magic scroll book that he added to the novel just for characters who couldn't use magic. He frantically flips through the pages. He assures himself there must be a spell that can get him out of this situation. A satisfied smile appears on his face as he finds exactly what he is searching for, the teleportation spell. The system window pops up, confirming its movement magic that transports a person to a specific place. As pieces of the ceiling fall around him, our boy thinks he will be buried alive at this rate. Picking up the book, he shouts that he must get as far away from this place as possible and uses the teleportation spell. The castle is framed against a clear sky. The hero, still clutching the book and standing in confusion and asking why he's still there. A system window appears, notifying him that the spell failed because of the movement of a magical barrier. Our boy starts whining that he doesn't even have time to look for another way out. Sitting in front of the book, its pages still flipping from the fall, he wonders if begging people to save him is all that's left. Then he suddenly notices something, a camouflage. The scene changes to a staircase creaking as someone approaches, and their shadow is visible. Our boy, covering himself with a cloak, transforms into a new form, a young man with brown hair. The status window shows that camouflage is the ability to change one's appearance into another person. Our boy thinks to himself that he doesn't believe disguising himself as a human prisoner will work, but he has to try everything he can. In his head, a comic book plan for getting out of Demon King's castle forms. Step 1. Transform into a human using magic. Step 2. Run into a prison cell. Step 3. being alongside prisoners when the Imperial Army comes to save them. Step 4. Escape while no one is paying attention. Getting saved by the army is the best option for survival for our boy. Our boy starts looking deeper into the prison. He realizes it's eerily quiet and wonders if he has entered the wrong room. Our boy is confronted by a smell that is so potent. His eyes widen, and he puts his hand up to his nose, wondering what the smell could be and wonders if it is the smell of fish, but then suddenly realizes it is the smell of blood. Jumping back in horror, he screams as the terrifying image overwhelms him. Sitting and trying to catch his breath, he screams again, seeing that all prisoners are dead. He questions why they are all dead, as he has never written of something like this in his novel. The novel was supposed to be a regular rom-com. He shivers with fear and thinks if he should run. Suddenly our boy sees someone alive and thinks if it is a survivor. When he goes close, he realizes it's a blonde-haired girl sitting on her knees. The girl is crying next to another woman who looks exactly like her. Our boy, not knowing what to say, thinks that this girl must still be just a child. The girl turns back at him and starts shaking. Our boy states that he too is a prisoner and asks the girl again if she is okay. Our boy glances at the dead woman and assumes she is her relative. He consoles the girl, saying that there is no need to be worried since somebody will come and save them soon. Our boy asks if she minds if they wait together. The girl looks at him suspiciously. Our boy wonders if that is too much to ask and then tries to calm the girl, saying that he himself is scared. Blushing slightly, our boy shows his empty hands to demonstrate his good intentions. He says that since they're in the Demon King's castle, it might be better if they stick together. The girl looks up with a sad expression as if trying to say something. Then she straightens up and begins to shake. Our boy nervously raises his hand, apologizing for his stupid questions. He tries to explain himself, but the blonde-haired girl rubs her eyes, wiping away tears, and tells him that it's fine and offers our boy to sit next to her. Our boy sits beside her and thinks it's a bit awkward. The girl tells him he seems very calm. Our boy replies that he is scared too and thinks to himself that he is truly terrified. If his plans fail, he knows he will be captured and killed. Our boy, stretching out his hand, continues thinking that he doesn't have any other choice, and if it does go wrong, then it can go wrong. He feels something inside his cloak and finds out a pack of crackers. Remembering where he found the pack in his suit, he decided to keep them. Although he isn't hungry, he thinks there might be another use for them. Our boy turns to a girl with a small smile and tells her he recently picked it. Our boy asks the girl if she wants to share it. The girl remains silent for a moment and then decides to take it. After thanking him, she takes a small bite, which makes our boy think that she must be starving, but still why she is taking small bites. Our boy thinks in his mind if the girl doesn't like them, and to make the girl calm, our boy tells her that the Imperial Army will come soon to save them. However, their conversation is interrupted by a noise. Someone screams that they have found the prison. Both of them look in shock, and our boy thinks that the army is here. A bearded man with a soldier appears in front of them. The bearded man, with a furious look on his face, says, "Finally." Our boy shields the girl with his body, nervous because he doesn't understand the strange reactions of these rescuers. For people who've just stumbled upon prisoners, their behavior seems odd. The bearded man in a black suit kneels down and shouts and starts calling the girl Imperial Highness and apologizes to her for not coming early to save her. Our boy becomes surprised at why he is calling her Imperial Highness. The blonde-haired girl is revealed to be Charlotte, the first princess of the Cardia Empire. The system window pops up, informing our boy that the prologue is complete and he has earned 100 achievement points. The flag of the royal army flutters in the wind as knights guard the main tent. Our boy thinks about his luck. Getting out with the princess he had unknowingly ended up with was a good decision. Charlotte calmly cuts a steak with a knife and eats. Our boy continues thinking but gets awkward, realizing how hopelessly desperate his situation is. Our boy reminds himself of the man who bowed before his master and thinks about how he and Charlotte were saved by a noble. Even though he was saved, he was still a demon pretending as a man with a low-ranking spell called camouflage. He worries that if Charlotte's maid uses anti-demon magic, his disguise will be revealed and he'll be doomed. On top of that, Charlotte seems to care about him too much, expressing gratitude because he saved her. Our boy sits with an unsatisfied expression, thinking how Charlotte is giving him too much attention for someone who wants to go quietly. He realizes something strange. Charlotte, A significant character is someone about whom he has never written in his novel. A blue-haired guy bows and asks the princess for forgiveness. He explains that since they are in a military camp, he has done all he can do for her. Charlotte replies saying it's not needed, calling him Lance. Blue-haired guy thanks Charlotte for her understanding. He says that once Duke Solarian arrives, she will be sent to the Imperial Palace immediately. Charlotte smiles sweetly, thanking him again. Charlotte then thanks our boy for helping her in prison, while our boy replies he doesn't think he helped her. Charlotte insists that he helped her a lot, and, as a token of gratitude, she promises to make sure he gets home safely. Charlotte asks our boy where he lives. Struggling to come up with an answer, our boy tries to remember the names of cities or regions, but draws a blank. He feels someone staring at him, and our boy notices the blue-haired guy is drilling him with an angry look. Charlotte, with tears in her eyes, asks how it's possible for him not to remember. Our boy thinks that she is so stupid that she even believes that. Charlotte sadly tells him it hurts to hear that he must have gone through so much. Our boy thinks that it's good for him that she is so naive. Wiping her tears, Charlotte tells our boy not to worry anymore, as she promises she will help him recover his memories. Our boy bows and thanks her. The blue-haired guy protests the promise, but Charlotte responds that she has said it out loud and therefore cannot take back her words. She asks the blue-haired guy if he intends to make her out to be a liar. 9. Defeated, responds that he meant no such thing. Our boy's expression changes into anger as he calls Charlotte a liar in his head, because it is impossible for her to fulfill her promise because she will die soon. In the original novel, there was no description of the prison's conditions. That's why the background story is generated on its own, creating an establishment and likelihood for this world that even our boy doesn't fully understand. He wonders if the princess's existence is one of these possibilities, knowing he can't predict her future since he never wrote about her. However, his thoughts drift to Bertus, the prince he created, a character who would never let competition survive if it stood in the way of his succession to the throne. Smiling unhappily, our boy thanks Charlotte again. This simple-minded girl has no idea what will soon be sent her way. Our boy realizes that his life is a foreclosure, and he isn't even sure of what he could do to save this innocent girl. He feeds his rationalization by convincing himself it would be better for Charlotte to die because he needs himself to live. With clenched fists, our boy curses himself for being pathetic. At this very moment, our boy thinks that he should tell her that her life is at stake. He feels that he can win her trust, and that if anything strange happens, she will help him out. Charlotte exhales, says she thinks she is getting indigestion from eating too much, and asks a blue-haired guy to call a doctor. The blue-haired guy is taken aback and hesitates, but says it is his responsibility to ensure her safety. Charlotte smiles softly and reassures him, asking if he really believes she is in any danger after the news of the Demon King's death. Upon Lance's disappearance, Charlotte shut down her eyelids in distaste. She looked up at our boy with a statement of wanting to start with an apology. Our boy becomes shocked to see Charlotte in a completely different way than before. Charlotte fetched a mug while asking our boy to forgive her. Looking at him seriously, she says that he will die because of her. Our boy, being shocked, asks what she means. He is shocked by her sudden transformation in demeanor. Charlotte takes a sip and explains that she cannot tell too much about the imperial family, but believes that there is a high probability she will be killed in the near future if nothing is done. She looks down and says that her half-brother, Bertus, is likely to be her killer. Charlotte seems displeased as she adds that most of the people in this camp are probably her enemies. She observes that the fact they are holding her captive without letting her go is a clear indication that they are not going to let her deliver her message. An image of a thick cloak comes into our boy's mind as he recalls how Charlotte was covered when she was rescued. He realizes people probably do not know there were survivors among the prisoners of the Demon King's castle. Our boy, being surprised, listens as Charlotte theorizes that they may be waiting for an order to execute her or planning to poison her and claim her body was found in the castle. Charlotte puts the mug down and continues, saying that if she dies, our boy will also be killed to cover their tracks. Our boy and realizes they are both doomed. Our boy nervously asks if they can appeal to the knights for help, considering Charlotte's status. Charlotte, staring ahead sadly, replies that it is useless because she has no one to trust. This surprises our boy, who holds his head in frustration and recalls the blue-haired guy's suspicious behavior and asks if even he cannot be trusted. Realizing their situation is hopeless, our boy concludes they've been put in checkmate. Charlotte, seeing the distress on our boy's face, reassures him not to worry. Charlotte, while smiling, reminds him of her promise to help him recover his memories. She raises her finger confidently and declares that they will escape together. Our boy listens, amazed as Charlotte outlines her plan to distract their enemies. He presses his feet to the ground, realizing there's little time left. Standing up and turning away, he struggles to comprehend the horrors unfolding in this novel. Running out of the tent, our boy thinks that his success and life are in his hands now. Inside another tent, our boy walks around muttering in shock why Charlotte trusted him with this job. Our boy inquires if Charlotte intends to leave when she is reluctant to do it. She crossed her fingers, confirming that the only way they both would survive was to bring Sir Francis with them. Our boy then asks who this Francis is, and Charlotte apologizes for not doing much of an explanation. A close-up of Francis flashes in Ron's mind as Charlotte asks if he remembers the knight who saved them in the Demon King's castle. Our boy admits that he found the knight rather scary. Charlotte explains that Francis is one of the rare representatives of the neutral faction, loyal only to the imperial family. Our boy clarifies that this means Francis is someone Charlotte can trust. Charlotte nods, continuing that it's unlikely Francis is aligned with enemies because, if he were, they would have been killed in the castle. Charlotte starts to describe Francis as a good, loyal knight. Our boy, looking bewildered, comes to understand that Francis may be their last hope for survival. Our boy clutches his fists, telling Charlotte he will be doing exactly as she says. Charlotte thanks our boy for believing in her. She hopes that they will return home safe and sound. Standing up from the table, having a knife clutched in a scary way, declaring it is time to create an escape route through tight security. Our boy, being confused, asks what she means. Charlotte nonchalantly points at herself and mentions that she would act as the bait. Our boy asks if that isn't terribly dangerous, but Charlotte assures him that she will probably be right until the one who decides her fate comes. Reaching out, she takes our boy's hand and advises him to speed up since time is running short. Our boy realizes he is in no position but to join up with her. Charlotte succeeded in distracting the knights for a few precious moments, and our boy left the tent and ran through camp looking for Francis. A man in armor notices our boy and asks who he is. Our boy tells hesitantly that he is looking for Francis. The soldier tells our boy that Francis just left for Demon King's castle, and our boy becomes disappointed because his plan is ruined now. The soldier further tells our boy that Lance, a blue-haired guy, a member of military headquarters, requested Francis to go to the Demon King's castle to clean up the rest of the demons. Our boy realizes that Lance is the knight who was with the princess before and thinks that he might have known the plans of the princess, and that's why Lance made the move immediately. Our boy thinks that he is left with only one way now. The soldier inquires again about what he needs to do with Francis, and our boy replies while screaming that this is important and tells the soldier that Francis's life is in danger. Our boy thinks the soldier will react that they need to rescue Sir Francis immediately. But instead, the soldier asked our boy what he meant by that. This response surprises our boy. The soldier asks our boy to explain it, but our boy explains that he doesn't know the specifics and says that something is happening that involves both Sir Francis and Her Imperial Highness. He further says that for both of their safety, we should bring him back here immediately. Our boy hesitates and says that he obviously won't believe him, but to his surprise, the soldier agrees and says he trusts him. Our boy asks again if he believes him and says that he has given him no reason to believe him. The soldier laughs and says the reason is simple. Our boy looks so stupidly desperate that even a stranger like him can see it. He adds with a grin that he has a gut feeling our boy is telling the truth because Sir Francis predicted this would happen. The soldier explains that Francis told him to stand by and wait because someone might approach him, just as our boy has now done. Our boy feels a chill run down his spine and becomes horrified, wondering if Sir Francis already knows about their plan and if Francis knew what would happen to the princess. Our boy is confused as he thinks if Francis knew it, then why did he leave for the Demon King's castle? Because he should stay here by her side. The soldier offers to take our boy to Francis. When asked if he has ridden a horse before, our boy admits he hasn't. Generously, the soldier assures our boy that his horse is strong enough to carry them both. Without hesitation, he instructs our boy to follow him. The soldier realizes he has not introduced himself yet and tells our boy that his name is Dyrus. As they leave, the blue-haired guy looks at them secretly. Dyrus and our boy ride on horseback. Dyrus grimaces in distaste as he orders the gates to open, yelling to speed up. Our boy looks on in horror, not knowing what demons are doing there. Our boy asks Dyrus about the demons on the roadside. Dyrus replies that they are demon prisoners and reminds him that the war has just ended. He explained that if demons were caught here, they are likely either defeated soldiers or ordinary demons. The demons stand in line as Dyrus continues, stating that they are still exploring areas closer to the castle and that the prisoners will be taken down once they go back to headquarters. Our boy looks back in shock as Dyrus continues, saying that he need not to worry. Our boy thinks to himself that if he had screwed up earlier, he would most likely end up like those demons. The horse brings them to the castle. Dyrus tells our boy that the area is on high alert and instructs him to prepare to dismount. A man with a mustache looks at them in confusion and asks who they are. Dyrus salutes and introduces himself as Lieutenant Dyrus, leader of the 11th Squadron's 3rd Platoon, 1st Troop, 4th Cavalry Regiment. The mustached man acknowledges him and asks what brings him there. Dyrus explains that he brought this boy, our boy, to deliver an important message to Sir Francis. The man with the mustache is taken aback and asks if Dyrus is referring to Sir Francis. Dyrus confirms, adding that since the information is confidential, he personally escorted our boy to deliver it. The man with the mustache says they just received a report that Sir Francis was killed in a battle with the remnants of the demon resistance. Our boy is stunned and asks himself if he indeed heard it right. The mustached man curses the demons, calling Sir Francis' death an incredible loss. Our boy realizes that means no one is left with Charlotte. The man asks if there's anything in the message he should hear, but Dyrus denies it, saying the information was meant only for Francis. The mustached man turns around, tells them he understands, and suggests they leave because this isn't a place for outsiders. Picture of Bertus comes into our boy's mind and reaches a conclusion that Bertus wants Charlotte dead and hence is doing every possible thing. Our boy recalls Charlotte saying that Lance would cover up all traces of her survival, even if it meant killing everyone who knew the truth. Our boy reflects that this is why Bertus targeted Francis because he also knew about Charlotte. Our boy holds his head, trying to think quickly about what to do next. Dyrus calls out to him and says that now is the time for our boy to tell him the whole truth. Dyrus says that the real reason our boy mentioned Francis being in danger should now be revealed. Our boy looks at Dyrus, debating whether to trust him. From the words of Charlotte, our boy knows that most of the military men support Bertus and can't even determine whether the junior officer, Dyrus, can be on his side. Still, our boy had to leave everything up to him. Taking a deep breath, our boy decides and explains everything that happened between them, how he and Charlotte were held hostage, and how Francis saved them. Dyrus says that if everything our boy said is true, then Francis was likely killed by knights rather than demons. Our boy acknowledges that this is probably the case. Dyrus then asks if our boy wants to save the princess now. Placing his hand on his chest, Dyrus declares that he will help them. Our boy is astonished to think that Lieutenant Dyrus would make the offer of helping them out. Dyrus informs him that he belongs to Team Francis, and that assisting his team is the correct call for him to make. Our boy agrees, partly being placated though he could hardly trust this person yet. Dyrus tells our boy that they should run back to the princess as they have nothing to do there at the Demon King's castle. Our boy hesitates and awkwardly suggests that he has a plan. Dyrus raises an eyebrow but agrees, saying rummaging through the Demon King's belongings might be a good idea since they could find something useful to aid their escape. Dyrus observes the mess in the castle and comments that everything seems to have already been looted and turned upside down. Our boy in his thoughts blames himself for the mess and says they might find something useful if they keep looking. Dyrus hypothesizes that the demons had looted the vaults right after the death of the Demon King, who described demons as vile and unscrupulous creatures, but in reality, it was our boy who came there before. Our boy starts searching and finds a teleportation scroll. He holds it up and tells Dyrus that he found something useful. Our boy shows him the teleport scroll. Dyrus looks at the spell and comments that such magical scrolls are the hallmarks of demons. Our boy recommends that they get a couple of more scrolls as they might require them later. Our boy adds that he found a magic book too and explains that if they put all the scrolls inside it, then they will be easier to access when needed. Dyrus becomes confused as he thinks that our boy was a prisoner, but he appears to know his way around the castle a bit too well. After collecting everything, they decide to leave. Dyrus asks our boy if he knows which way they came. Our boy confidently points forward, but Dyrus grabs his hand, warning him to stay quiet. Around the corner, knights are patrolling the hallway. Voices echo as one knight says he saw someone enter the castle, and another calls them cowards for hiding inside. Dyrus comments that these are knights of the Silurian Duchy. They belong to Bertus' maternal family power, one of the strongest noble families of the empire. They want Bertus to be enthroned as the emperor, and because of that, most of the knights that make up the Silurian Duchy are no ordinary knights. Rather, they are high-ranking knights of noble status. And probably that's how Francis died, because he didn't listen to Bertus. Dyrus and our boy remain hidden as our boy quietly assesses their surroundings, knowing that their next move could determine their survival. One of the knights tells the captain not to worry as they'll find them quickly. Our boy wonders how he can find us quickly. Suddenly, one knight's eyes glow. Dyrus and our boy stand petrified at the knight's boastful declaration that he had just checked on them, and they're behind the stone statue, hiding from them. He says if one listens closely, one could actually hear their breathing coming from there. The captain unsheaths his sword, pointing it in the direction of the statue, and asks them to come out submissively. A leg can be seen poking out from around the corner. The captain sneers and says Charlotte is pathetic for having sent innocent people to die for her. Being enraged, Dyrus says that the knight should be ashamed of his vile attempts to try and harm the princess. The captain dismisses what Dyrus says and says that the ravings of a worthless knight mean nothing to him. He declares that he wouldn't want to kill a civilian, but it's all for the future of the empire. Dyrus steps out from behind the corner, takes out his sword, and tells our boy not to interfere. Our boy, standing beside Dyrus, mutters that he went through so much just to escape this very castle. Looking away in fear, our boy wonders if, after everything, they're just going to kill him here. Our boy stares at the statue, frowning. He notices the glowing eyes of the gargoyle statue. Our boy looks puzzled and thinks that in comics or games, statues like this usually come to life in moments like this. To his astonishment, the statue begins to move. The captain gazes at the statue in horror, asking what is happening. The statue slams the knight into the floor. Our boy watches in shock as the other knight screams that their commander has just died and demands to know what happened. He panics as the statue begins moving toward him and kills him as well. Our boy is shocked, unable to know how the statue gained life, thinking instead that he only hallucinated it moving. Dyrus takes hold of Ron's wrist, informing him that this was their best opportunity at escape, whatever the reason. The two of them escape by riding a horse. Dyrus exclaimed why the gargoyle statue suddenly came to life, and our boy says he doesn't know either. But in his thoughts, our boy says it's a lie that he doesn't know, as our boy thinks about the status screen he had seen after entering this body. In that status window, there is an ability called Demon Domination. The ability, in all probability, had unconsciously caused the statue to wake up. Our boy hopes that Dyrus won't suspect him about something like this. Dyrus turns around to our boy and says it was good that they were left unscathed. Our boy nods in agreement, saying they almost died. Dyrus suddenly notices something behind them and curses in horror. A group of knights is already catching up with them, shouting that they cannot let them escape the forest. Dyrus wonders where so many knights came from. Our boy urgently tells Dyrus to grab him, leaving Dyrus confused as he doesn't understand our boy's plan. Our boy flips through the magic book desperately, trying to find out what to do. He knows he cannot die here. He is holding a scroll and declares that it is time to get out. He casts a spell by using the scroll and accelerates the horse's speed by making it glow. The horse runs faster. Dyrus pays attention to the fact with astonishment that it is acceleration magic that our boy has done. He emphasizes that, at that distance, they can hardly try to catch them. Suddenly, an arrow bypasses from behind Dyrus to fly into it. It comes from a crossbow of some knight. Dyrus saw they would not simply be left as well. Our boy flicks through the book, nodding confidently to say he's found a win-win option. Dyrus is suspicious, asking if our boy intends to use magic. Dyrus warns him that spells won't work on knights of this strength. Our boy says that he has written the rules of this world and knows that knights wouldn't be so easily defeated by ordinary spells. However, gets an idea of how to resolve the situation. Using the illusion ability, our boy casts a spell targeting the horses of the knights. The eyes of the horses glow, and one knight is confused, asking his horse what was wrong with his horse as it struggles to control it. Our boy smiles, seeing that the illusion has worked. He says if they can incapacitate a few more knights, they will really have a good shot at escaping. He is flipping through the book again. Our boy keeps searching and begins to see their own horse get tired. Meanwhile, the knights are getting closer and closer. Feeling frustrated, our boy tries to think of a new solution, but suddenly spots something strange in the forest, a group of demons, and realizes that these are surviving demons from the defeated Demon King's army. They walk forward with displeasure, appearing ragged from their capture. Our boy watches, asking himself what this strange feeling is. He remembers having the same sensation when he made the gargoyle statue move. One of the demons steps forward, his eyes glowing with fury. Dyrus screams in horror that there is an orc in front of them. The orc roars and charges, and Dyrus screams that this must be the end for them. However, to their surprise, the orc ignores them and passes by. Dyrus wonders why the orc did not attack them. One of the pursuing knights also notices the orc and shouts, asking what's wrong. Dyrus and our boy stand there unmoving as a knight wonders out loud if they can really control a captive demon. The orc turns and strikes one of the knights from behind. The knight is enraged and bellows at the orc to get out of his way. Meanwhile, our boy is tugging on Dyrus's arm, insisting that they must leave now. Looking back, our boy grins to himself, thinking that he was right. After all, the demon's authority works in their favor too. Now they have succeeded in fending off the knight's cause of demons. This all comes very naturally to Dyrus. He is simply puzzled. He thinks about the whole thing and tries to understand why they keep on getting help from demons at random times. He decides not to suspect our boy because it's just pointless now. They have a princess to save. As they draw close to the tents, a knight who's standing guard interrupts them and mentions that this is Charlotte's barack. A knight orders Lieutenant Dyrus to pronounce his name before him. Lieutenant remains calm as he introduces himself, stating that he is Lieutenant Dyrus, while adding that they have an important report to inform the princess of. The guard knight questions whose Lieutenant Dyrus is and wonders how a common lieutenant would be requested to see Her Highness. He scoffs at Dyrus for thinking he would be permitted through so readily, especially with a boy, and commands them to be gone. Dyrus becomes angry. Without hesitation, he kills the knight and turns to our boy, saying it is time for Plan B. More knights rush to attack right away, shouting in anger. Dyrus notices the commotion and points to the side, instructing our boy to go to Highness and save her. Our boy hesitates, but enters Charlotte's tent holding the magic book. Inside the tent, two people wearing hats exclaim in shock, asking who is he and why he was allowed inside. Charlotte stares at him stunned. Without giving her a chance to respond, our boy urgently asks her to close her eyes. He uses the flash ability, temporarily blinding everyone. Our boy instructs Charlotte to follow him. She reaches out to him, and as he grabs her, he activates the mass teleportation ability. There suddenly bursts out an intense column of light from the seal, where our boy announces their arrival at the capital of the Guardium Empire. The notification congratulates our boy for completing the prologue. He is awarded an achievement called the Historical Turning Point, and in addition, gives him 1,000 points for the same. It mentioned that he has changed the fate of the entire future and emerged as the surviving main character instead of what really originally existed in this story. The story continues with an overview of the Guardium Empire capital city from an elevated perspective. Here is the main story of the Demon King's death unfolds. Gradium was modeled after Seoul, where our boy was born. Charlotte and our boy arrived at Guardium after teleporting. Standing in the middle of the city, our boy gazes at the sheer size and detail of the city, knowing he would not have described it that way in his novel. He can't even imagine how someone would bother to draw every brick on the massive streets, but then he reminds himself this isn't a time to turn into author mode. Charlotte has sat on the ground. Looking visibly distraught, asks if that could be really where the capital stood. Confused, they realize they were standing in front of a camp where they just met in demon territories. Our boy realizes she's clearly disoriented and leans down to apologize for bringing her here without explaining everything properly. He holds out her hand and tells her that when he reached the Demon King's castle, Sir Francis was already dead. Shocked, Charlotte asks if he is sure. She takes his hand and asks again if they ended up in the capital because of his power. Our boy hesitates and explains that someone helped them. Just then, Lieutenant Dyrus steps in front of them. Our boy immediately asks if Dyrus is injured, but Dyrus tells him he is fine, stating that if they had stayed in the camp any longer, they would not have survived. The scene flashes back to the backup plan, Plan B. According to the plan, Dyrus made a diversion so that they could gain more time while our boy and Charlotte left. He proceeded then, following them through a teleportation scroll. Our boy frowns, thinking how lucky they were to have 2 teleportation scrolls. Without that second one, Dyrus would have definitely died. Charlotte approaches Dyrus and asks who he is. Kneeling, Dyrus introduces himself and says it is an honor to meet the princess. He asks for her permission to explain everything to her. As they walk down the streets, Dyrus provides Charlotte with a detailed account of what happened starting with Francis's death, the infiltration of the castle, and how they narrowly escaped from the Solarians' knights. Our boy, walking behind them, listens as Dyrus explains it and pauses to reflect on it. He remembers how the gargoyle took out a few of the knights in the castle by surprise, and how one of the demons they had caught started to go haywire, which gave them time to escape. Thanks to the teleportation scrolls, they arrived safely at the capital. Charlotte glanced back at our boy and found him suspicious in a small way. Our boy realizes that Charlotte is starting to connect the dots. Our boy frowns, thinking it would be unusual if she fully trusted him given everything she's been through, considering the intrigues of noble life. Knowing he can't remain with her for much longer without putting himself in danger, our boy slips away silently. He stumbles through an archway, gets a good breath of air, and falls into a wall. He sees how often he's escaped death, yet sat there as frail, starving, and broke. Now he sits on the ground, begging pennies from passers-by. As he gazes into the future, he regrets not having allowed demons in his book to consume mana. Then, suddenly, a window appears on his screen, alerting him to the fact that he has just unlocked the interference ability of world settings. Our boy stares at the status window, where he is informed of his gaining achievement points, as well as how his acts could alter history. It further enumerates some of the available challenges. Our boy examines the screen, which shows complicated details, and our boy asks to summarize details in 3 sentences. The status window then shows that our boy is able to interact directly with the world setting through the usage of achievement points. The second point is that major events might not be revisioned or might require a large amount of points. The final point is that skill can't be used to cause setting collapse. Our boy thinks that it might be complicated, but it seems a good cheat ability to make it out of this world alive. Our boy looks for more settings to get to know what he can do for now, and status window shows him to take the writer's advice. Our boy looks confused as he tries to code what is vague advice that shows him a riddle asking how many people were kidnapped at the demon castle, while the clear advice tells him to go to the magic item store. Our boy thought that it was suggesting that he make a quick buck with the magic scrolls that he got from the castle, so that's why our boy went to Aligar District Commerce Area. A bald man inspects the book, accusing our boy of trying to fool him. An older man in glasses laughs at the book, saying this is the first time he's seen someone trying to sell such garbage, and advises him to go home before he gets beaten by someone. A red-haired woman taps the book with her finger, saying he should go into art instead of wasting time. Everyone in the shop thinks our boy is trying to sell fake scrolls. Our boy puts the manuscript on the counter and insists that he wants to sell it. Our boy thinks back to the system's suggestion about visiting the magic shop. Didn't they mean for him to sell the scrolls from the book? He's left wondering why nothing is working out as planned. Not discouraged, our boy moves on to another shop, where he shows the scroll to the shopkeeper, who seems intrigued. The shopkeeper asks if he can trace another scroll, commenting on how well our boy draws, and suggesting they split the profits from selling the scrolls in half. The shopkeeper adds that if he can finish tracing the scroll by the next day, he will be paid 5 silver coins. Although our boy agrees, but decides not to do so as he is not confident that he can copy a scroll. Also, he thinks, what if someone tries to use that fake scroll in time of emergency, and it will not work? Our boy can't help but wonder why no one seems to recognize the scrolls he took from the Demon King's castle. Feeling suspicious, he decides to try one more shop and plans to sell the fireball scroll if no one recognizes the others. At the next shop, he finds the place messy and empty, but as he looks around, a red-haired lady enters and asks if he is a customer. Our boy tells her he wants to sell some scrolls, but she replies that she doesn't buy scrolls and also won't let him leave with them. Instead, she offers him 2 gold coins, but upon seeing the scrolls, her expression changes. She becomes serious and fixes him with an intense gaze, asking where he got the scrolls. She recognizes them as magic constructs used only by demons and demands answers. Feeling the weight of the situation, our boy becomes nervous. While he knows magic exists in this world, he never took the time to understand how it works or the differences between human and demon magic. He begins to realize this is why merchants dismissed the scrolls as fake. They were either not mages or didn't know enough about magic to recognize their value. However, this woman is different. She sees through him immediately, and her serious tone makes it clear she knows exactly what the scrolls are. The red-haired girl again asks our boy in anger about the scrolls. In a moment of panic, our boy tries to use his status window to make her forget the situation, but he doesn't have enough achievement points to do so. Left with no other option, he reluctantly tells her the truth, admitting that he took the scrolls from the Demon King's castle, fully aware that this confession might bring serious consequences. Our boy hesitantly explains everything to the red-haired girl and tells her the story of how he saved the princess, but the woman doesn't seem to believe him. She says that if he had done something like that, he must have received a reward for it. Our boy insists that he is not lying and adds that this could even lead to his death at the hands of the imperial prince, Bertus. Our boy sighs with relief as the woman smiles sadly and asks if the Demon King is dead. She approaches Valor, saying he and the princess must have had a hard time, and that so much suffering has fallen on the life of an ordinary guy. He laughs nervously as the girl hugs him, telling him not to be afraid. Our boy feels glad that she is kind, but wants to leave quickly because he's very hungry. She looks at him and says she will try to remove the curse that was probably cast on him in the castle. Our boy becomes worried, thinking she might remove the transformation spell. She asks him to stand still, her gaze tense. The woman folds her hands, and a glowing ornament appears. The woman points her hands at him and exclaims, "Dispersion!" Our boy screams for her to stop, but it's too late. Pink smoke and a glowing light surround him as the girl steps back, frowning, with a drop of sweat on her cheek. The glow fades, revealing Valier's red hair, horns on his head, and confusion on his face. The woman kneels down and addresses him as His Highness. Our boy freezes, looking at her in shock, as she asks if he doesn't remember her. Raising her hand surrounded by flames, she speaks in an unknown language, her eyebrows furrowed. As she opens her mouth, our boy notices her red eyes, realizing she's a vampire. Flames swirl around her as she confirms this. Our boy raises his hand to his face, and the woman exclaims that he really doesn't remember her. Our boy thinks to himself, but can't remember. The woman walks to the window, saying they can't stay here for long because they might be seen. She pulls the curtains tightly and suggests moving to her room on the second floor to continue their conversation. Our boy looks at her wearily, wondering what's going on, but agrees. The woman offers our boy sandwiches, saying he must be hungry and apologizes that she can't offer much. Our boy thanks her and thinks he can't address her the same way as before since she has switched to formal speech. As he eats a sandwich, the woman asks if he truly lost all his memories. Our boy confirms that he forgot everything except the fact that he is the Prince of Demons. Drawing the curtain, the woman says it's better this way for both of them because of the dangerous scroll he brought. Kneeling in front of our boy, she formally introduces herself as Elaris, a member of the Demon King Army's Guardian Infiltration Squad, Tuesday, and promises to serve him. Our boy can't remember if he has written something like this. As he eats, our boy wonders why a vampire is living in such a sunny place. She shyly explains that she stays there to save on rent. Her smile quickly fades as she tells him about 2 other demons in the capital. Elaris explains that one member is active under the false identity of Count Argon Pontius, Sparkgar, a white-haired werewolf, while another demon lives near Irene's riverbank, Lycanthrope. She is a demon called Irene's Wild Dog. Sparkgar kidnaps the princess of the Empire by using his mastery of transformation magic to blend into human society. Our boy remembers Charlotte and realizes Sparkgar has taken her, deciding he needs to be cautious. He asks about the wild dog, and Elleris explains that the werewolf controls the criminal underworld due to his incredible close combat skills. She adds that she has built an army in a short time. Our boy thinks the squad sounds more like a group of gangsters. Elleris explains that Lycanthrope is currently the leader of the gang and also handles the squad's income. Elleris lowers her eyes and asks again if our boy truly remembers nothing. Our boy sighs and wipes his face as Elleris admits she is relieved he has survived, believing they have a chance to revive their world. Our boy cuts her off, saying he has no intention of reviving the demon world. He argues that gathering demons would only restart the war, which he cannot endure again, as our boy says that doing something like this will only mean his death. Elleris becomes upset and shouts that he has a duty as the prince to save their future. Our boy firmly replies that the time of demons is over and tells her to stop acting like a servant. Elleris bows her head and apologizes, saying she understands. After a silence, she suggests our boy rest and begins to leave, but our boy calls out to her as he thinks he is being oversensitive. Elleris stops but doesn't turn around, and for a moment, our boy thinks she looks strangely happy. That night, our boy lies in bed while Elleris sits silently nearby. He glances at her and thinks about how vampires are supposed to be noble creatures of the night and thinks that she looks beautiful. He calls her name, but she addresses him as His Highness again. Our boy becomes frustrated and reminds her to stop calling him that. Our boy asks her what kind of person he was in the past, and Elleris seems nervous and smiles as she says he had been a proud and wonderful demon. Our boy can tell from her hesitation that it isn't true. He turns away and tells her to forget about it, saying they have to meet the other squad members tomorrow. He then asks where she plans to sleep. Moonlight illuminates the room as Elleris gently places her hand on his shoulder. Our boy realizes and feels embarrassed that they will share the bed. Watching her sleep, he thinks about how absurd his reincarnation is, though moments like this make it feel less like crazy.